Shalom, party people, and welcome to the 12th C, Friday 14 of April 2023. Hanging out at Oh Dark Ugly, approximately 10 after 5 at the time of this recording, starting Ruck March of solo, just myself, 12th C. No JD Stone with me, and that's okay. Rocking a 60-pound pack and a mild to moderate pace. Just gonna hang out, have a good time. I figure we can have some story time. Nothing crazy, nothing insane, but hopefully you can get some giggles. So, story one. Same career field that I'm in now, but different career path. I had the opportunity to volunteer for the emergency response team, and the joys of, hey, someone's in trouble and I get to be one of the people who shows up in the middle of the night. And there's plenty of other things that we did, but that's at its core what it was when, who you gonna call, that whole situation, we got the call. And I had done this for several months, and a lot of my coworkers on the emergency response team, their jobs did not require that their paperwork kind of followed them or whatever. The little bits of paperwork that they had to do if they got called away for the emergency response for whatever reason, because we could go all over the state. It wasn't just, oh, hey, show up to work at 3 o'clock in the morning and then go home. It was, hey, these people over here need our help, and it's a 2.5 hour car ride there, 2.5 hour car ride back. We're going to be gone for 18 hours minimum. I mean, we could be gone for 3 days, but we'd be gone for a little while. And so while you're gone, someone else is going to be filling your post, and whatever paperwork you have, they're going to get done. Like, the job will carry on. Well, my job, my paperwork was always waiting for me when I got back, and that was due to the position that I was in. And so stuff would stack. And no big deal, but other duties would come up that had nothing to do with the emergency response team, and my paperwork would stack. So this was something that doing my normal day job was getting a little hard. And I knew this going in, that it was a possibility, but you stack new babies onto that and a need to be home with my family, and no harm, no foul. But I told my commanding officer, just like, hey, this is getting difficult for me to do, and I understand that this team is 100% voluntary, and for me to be able to have my normal job performance and that start to suffer, it's not a wise move for me to continue to stay. I love this. It's really fun to show up when people need help and to provide that help, because at my core, I really love being helpful to other people. But it just, wasn't working out. And, he's like, man, I'm going to be really sad to lose you, but, I understand. You got to do your day job, and you also got to be a husband and father, and you got other things you got going. Whenever things slow down for you, your spot's going to be waiting for you. I implore you to come back when you're able, but not before. So, cool, no problem. Hey, I made a commitment to this team. We've got, 28 days left in the month, and this was in December. It's like, we got 28 days left in the month. I'll ride you out until the new year. Midnight on December 31st, becoming January 1st, is when I'll rotate out, on the condition that we're not, getting called out to go help people. If we get called out anytime before then and it leads over, I'll ride it until we're relieved of duty. Not till the situation's over, but till we're relieved of duty. So I'll stick it out till then. And, I made that statement with a relatively safe assumption that we weren't going to get a call. The premise was we might get one call between now and then, but it was highly unlikely to happen over New Year's or Christmas, let alone any of those. Just those times of the year, emergencies tended not to pop up, and when they did, they tended to get handled relatively quickly. So it was no big deal. Yeah, I'll write it out to the end of the year, make it a clean break, even month, all that good stuff. That way it doesn't mess with pay, that way it doesn't mess with any of that good stuff. And you got somebody until hopefully you can put the word out to maybe recruit one more. And so all that goes down. Well, we got called out 3 times in that 28 days. So I got to go and respond to the first call out. No big deal. Got to go and respond to the second call out. And there was an individual on the team who, and these first 2 call outs were relatively back to back. Still had like 14 days out of that 28 that were going to be relatively wide open. And we figured anybody who was creating problems that were the reasons for these call outs would slow down once, federal holidays started kicking in, because everybody kind of likes to be off. And this individual chimed in, and a good team member, good teammate, no complaints or anything, but just get a little snarky sometimes, and that's just the atmosphere of these teams, is people are going to get a little snarky sometimes. He was like, man, we're going to have a call out the day before you resign. I just know it. And he 100% meant it as a joke, and we all laughed. And I was like, well, I made a commitment and I'm going to ride it out. So if that happens, no big deal. And lo and behold, I'm in the shower on the 28th of December, and getting ready to go to bed. And I get the phone call. Hey, get your hiney here ASAP. We need you now. And it's not muster at this time and your pay starts. Then it's you better drive, break every speed limit between here and there, put your hazards on. If you get reds and blues behind you, they're going to chase you here, and we'll explain why you didn't stop. I mean, it was a full-blown get here now. So, I still have bubbles I had hair at the time. I still had bubbles in my hair, and from the shower, I'm getting dressed and not even tying boots or anything, just feet in shoes, and I'll tie them in the vehicle. Had uniform on, no nothing, just holding me back, just boogieing, and get there. And first order of business was, okay, what's the situation? We get our situation report, we go in, we do our business, and we're there for days. And thankfully, we have it set up to where we can be on rotation and let some people get some sleep, and we do what we need to do. Everything's good. But as things were calming down, it was like December 31st day. And it's like, okay, I'm committed till midnight. So, and I also made the statement of, I'll ride this thing out to the end. Hours keep ticking by, and things continue to calm down, and the people in charge make the call. All right, we're stable enough to where we can resume normal operations, and this is a few hours to spare. Everything's said and done. I'm getting ready to boogie home. And this individual who made this comment, I locate him and say, hey, come over here. And he comes on over. He's like, yeah, man, what's up? He's like, I got to show you something over here. Take 2 steps. I swiftly turn and cup check him. Like, that's for jinxing me. And I hang out with him till he catches his breath. And he does. And thankfully, the commanding officer was right beside us. And he was in full laughter. It's like, dude, are you okay? We make sure he can breathe, he can walk, all that good stuff. And just that quick, light cup check. It's not even like a rabbit punch. It's just that tap and that every guy understands that is just hard enough in a sensitive enough area that it empties all the breath in your lungs and you're gasping. And that's where he is at. And commanding officer's laughing, like, dude, you okay? Yeah, everything's fine. And he's like, so you learned your lesson about not jinxing people right before? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. Totally learned lesson. And we all laughed about it. But, you know, not necessarily chasing a moral lesson in the story. But I do stand by the fact that I was gonna ride or die. Hey, I made this commitment. I'm gonna stick with you guys. And if this situation is continually gonna escalate, I'll stay past midnight several days in until they deem it safe enough to relieve me from duty. And it was good, left on good terms. The guy who I rabbit punched or cup checked or whatever, however you want to phrase it, we still talk and made all that a whole lot of fun. So before I transition into story 2, just throwing out a couple of comments. Since I have started working out in the dark, Ruck Marches, just morning runs, evening runs, and it just comes from all the 75 hard goodness of 2 days, and for sure one of them being outside, and it usually is dark when I'm outside. It's just schedules of family and all that good stuff, because it's a lot easier to work out when everybody's asleep and nobody needs you. But man, I have seen more shooting stars in the last year than I've ever seen in my life combined. And I guess that's just the go get outside and enjoy the Father's creation and see what he's made. But I just saw, I don't know if it was a shooting star or a satellite, but just right overhead, and I know this camera's not good enough in the dark to have captured it, but man, that was cool. But no, I do want to value keeping promises, and part of that is keeping promises that I've made to myself, so that way others will know that I trust myself. But I also want to value promises that I make to other people and keep those, so that way I'm even more trustworthy to those people. And that way that when I ask something of somebody, that they understand that I want to keep my word, and hopefully that they'll keep theirs. So that way that trust can be mutual. So story 2. I've already shared about being a downhill skateboarder in college and just having a whole lot of fun with it. Well, there was a day we were grabbing our boards. And I say a day, it was a night. It was about as dark as it is now, but it was at much, much earlier in the morning or much, much later in the night, depending on how you want to look at it. And hill that we rode all the time, we would start up at some train tracks and we would skate downhill and have a good time. We would make all of these curves, the road leveled out, and just coast for a while. And you had the option to go left and keep coasting, or you could go right and have an insane downhill that you had the option of just a nice straight shot downhill with a really fun long curve to the right where you could grab the board on the left-hand side, drop your right glove, and these gloves would have material on it that would Velcro on that was like a really, really dense plastic cutting board, basically, is what the material was. And they were called slide pucks. And you drop that slide puck that was attached to your slide glove, and it would offer a third point of contact that would move on the ground with the board. And you could push harder and it would add more friction, or you could just lightly coast and have very little friction, but it would give you an additional balance point where grabbing the side of the board with one hand and dropping your slide glove on the other, you could fan your arm out and either be a slight braking force for yourself if necessary, or just a stability if you just kind of ghosted your hand on the ground. And if the turn was too tight, you could put more pressure. You could also change the pressure of your foot placement on the board, more on the front or more on the back, and drop your slide puck even harder into the ground on a turn with tucking and grabbing the board, where you could actually kick that board out 90 degrees very, very quickly and do a very beautiful slide. And that would also help slow you down if you needed some braking force. So the skateboards, even going pretty fast, you did have the potential to have some braking force if necessary. And if you were good enough with it, you could stop relatively quickly. Well, that nice long turn at the end, you do that, or you take a short turn at the very, very base of the hill. You were going really quick. Depending on a few things, you could be going 40 miles an hour going down that hill, and on a skateboard, that is pretty darn quick. So we would be boogieing and just decided, you know what, I'm going to take this turn at the very base of the hill and have a whole lot of fun. I've done it several times, but not going that fast, because how you could increase your speed is you would kind of crouch a little bit. You'd put additional pressure on your front foot, and you would tuck your hands behind your lower back, and you'd lean your head forward, and they'd call that a speed tuck. And in that speed tuck, you were decreasing your air resistance and also lowering your center of gravity, so that board could actually do what it was designed to do and move relatively quickly. Well, speed tucked increased, and as I was coming down, okay, let's do this turn and have a whole lot of fun. So I grabbed my board, tucked over, and tried to do this slide. And this is relatively low to the ground. I have my left shin forward. And at the kind of apex of this turn, there's one of these fences that is really more decorative than, an actual fence that's designed to truly keep anything in or out. That, those fences that are made entirely of the wooden fence posts that are semi-round but they're flat on two sides and the other two sides are very rounded. Well, the cross beams of these fences are made with the fence posts as well that are whittled to fit into holes. And I found out just how hard my left shin actually was. And my left shin went plumb through the bottom post of that fence, the bottom crossbar post. And my helmet went plumb through the top. And my shin hit first and then my helmet did. Knocked me off my board and I'm laying on the ground. The fence is plumb split in half. And I wish I still had the picture. But throughout the years, it's just gone. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. Because I think I remember posting it to social media at one time before I had deleted my personal account. But that picture is just me laying there. And the only thing that comes to mind of what was going through my head was that scene in Avengers, the first one, where Loki is bad-mouthing and Hulk has enough of it, and Hulk grabs Loki and just smashes him back and forth, and then Loki's just laying there like, ooh, like can't move. That's what was basically going through my head. Like I've just been beaten to a pulp and I'm just laying there. And I had a goose egg on my shin that looked like, I don't know, probably a softball that ended up developing. Nothing was broken, thankfully, but it's just some massive swelling. My head was fine because that helmet was rock solid and did what it needed to do. It had the right cushioning in the right places, and no signs of a concussion. But I was just laying there for a few minutes, and the people I was skating with caught up to me because they were kind of playing and they realized I had fallen, and so they skate over and they're like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I hobble into the car after we take pictures of me laying on the ground, and text those pictures out to a couple people and just kind of play around with a little bit like, we had a brief accident while we were out, but everybody's fine. And it made me think of a Brian Regan sketch where he would talk about his brothers getting hurt, and he was like, Mom, you know how Billy's arm bends like this? Well, it doesn't bend like that anymore. And we were thinking that since you're getting out earlier, could you just run him by the hospital? And I was chuckling about that the whole way through, and I just threw some ice on my giant goose egg of a shin and hung out in bed for a couple of days. And this was, those early college years where you're 18 and dumb and you tend to heal pretty quick. And I was back on my feet in a few days and just moving on with life after that. And I think my shin had hurt for a few weeks and then it was fine. And I'm talking like mild pain where Tylenol wasn't even necessary. But all that to be said, just being a dumb teenager, skating and having a whole lot of fun. Jordan Peterson has one of those rules of don't bother teenagers when they're skating. And no one bothered us that night. Hard lesson learned of, moving that quick, I probably don't need to change directions so fast. And I guess we can have a lot of momentum as we're going about things. And a quick change of pace is only going to get us hurt. And that's applicable all the way around, I guess, but I'm not trying to be a sage of wisdom. I'm just more mentally processing. But it is, a decent enough way to move about of, hey, I'm gonna not change directions so fast and cause myself some pain or other people around me pain either. Ooh. trying to think if I want to do a story number 3 or not. Oh yeah, so story 3, and I think I'll do this one and then chatter a little bit and call it. But story 3, I used to work oil, and you know, it was just good money, more money than a 19-year-old kid should ever have. And it was hot. We were doing what's called rig move, where everything shuts down and we're picking up the oil rig one piece at a time and moving it. Could be 100 feet, could be 100 miles away to where we drill in a new spot. And one of the guys on my crew, his hard hat fell off. And you know, no big deal. Pick it up, put it back on. Well, it fell off and it landed on the ground, and the ground happened to be 40 feet away. And I was just shouting to the guy on the ground, hey, you know, if you pick that hard hat up or whatever, cool, I'll give you $100 to piss in it. And it's just me being stupid. And he's like, legit, $100? Like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. And so he whips it out for God and everybody to see, and he fills the hard hat up. Oh, with probably half a liter of fluid. And dumps it out real quick. Tosses it up to me. I proceed to go get a water bottle and some soap, because on the oil rig we'd usually have a pretty big bucket of orange Gojo, and I dump about half the water bottle in there, scrub the hard hat out with the Gojo, and then dump the other half of the water bottle in there, rinse it out, grab some paper towels, wipe it clean, hand the dude his hat, say, here you go, dude. And no rhyme or reason, just being dumb. And the guy on the ground is like, you're going to pay me that $100 or I'm going to kick your ass. I'm like, no problem, man. And so we pile up in the truck at the end of the day, and it was a long day. Run out to the ATM, pull out $100. Here you go, dude. And move on. And no moral to that one, just kind of a fun situation where passing time out being stupid. And I mean, yeah, I know I upset the guy who got his hard hat pissed in, but at least cleaning up afterwards, not trying to justify, just, hey, that's the situation. And you know, he was obviously a little bit upset that his hard hat was getting pissed in, but hey, at least wasn't mad that I cleaned it up afterwards. So anyway, we're about 28 minutes deep, and I'm going to call it as far as the recording goes. I want to thank everyone who watched this, all 2 of you probably, who stuck it out. Shout out to 27th subscriber. I appreciate that. For those of you who have rode it out with me all the way through, thank you very much. I know it's not as entertaining on a Ruck March where I don't have Mr. JD Stone on my left or on my right to bounce things off of and have some fun banter. But subscribe for more. I'm kind of liking the shorts that have been going on recently. I think they've been getting a little bit better foot traffic. I know my stage presence is basically terrible, and it's embarrassing when I can not make eye contact with the camera and not even quote verbatim my mission statement. So those are some things I'm going to continue to work on and move on with things. But go grab your rucksacks, throw them on, and go for a brisk walk. go do hard things.